Gafia. The letter arrived on a Thursday, 2 pages handwritten in my mother's careful cursive. The same handwriting that had signed my school permission slips and birthday cards, and the note she had tucked into my suitcase the first time I left for summer camp at age 10 that said simply, "We are so proud of you. Come home safe." The handwriting was the same. The words were not. "You have chosen a path that is a disgrace to this family. You have chosen to bring a child into the world outside of marriage, outside of God's design, outside of everything your father and I raised you to be. We cannot support this. We cannot be part of this. Until you understand the gravity of what you have done, we are asking you not to contact us." If I was 26 years old. I was 14 weeks pregnant. I was sitting in the apartment I had rented alone since graduating, because independence had always felt less like a preference and more like a survival skill. And I read the letter twice and then set it on the kitchen counter and made myself a cup of tea and sat with the specific, hollow quality of a grief that arrives from a direction you should have been able to predict but somehow did not. My name is Nadia Callum. I am 34 years old. And this is the story of the letter, the years after it, and the afternoon my parents asked to meet my son, and what I showed them instead. I need to tell you about my parents honestly, because honest stories are the only ones that hold. Thomas and Grace Callum were not villains. I want to establish that, because the easy version of this story makes them villains, and the eBay version is not accurate, and I have spent 8 years refusing to tell the easy version, because it would cost me something I consider important. My own integrity about what actually happened and why. My parents were deeply religious people from a specific tradition that had sustained them through significant hardship. My father's immigration from Nigeria at 22, my mother's difficult early years in a country that was not the one she had grown up in, the specific trials of building a life in a new place, with a faith that was not just belief but structure. That faith had been the architecture of their survival. I understood this. I had grown up inside it. What I had also grown up understanding, gradually, and then suddenly the way those understandings arrived was that I did not share their architecture. Not in its specific prescribed forms, not in the particular geography of rules that governed bodies and choices, and the correct sequencing of a woman's life. I had not told them this. I had told them, instead, the acceptable version, attending the services I needed to attend, performing the compliance that kept the peace, occupying the space of a daughter who was on the correct path, while quietly building a life that did not follow that path in any of the ways that would have mattered to them. The pregnancy ended the performance. Not because I had been careless, because I had been deliberate, had chosen at 26 to become a mother in the specific way available to me, which was alone, through planning and intention, and the conviction that the correct time to have a child was not determined by the presence of a husband, but by the readiness of a mother. I had been ready. I had not told my parents I was trying. And when the pregnancy arrived, I had sent them a letter, careful, warm, prepared over 3 drafts, explaining what I had done, and why, and how much I wanted them to be part of what came next. Their response had arrived on a Thursday in my mother's careful cursive. I will not catalog the years between the letter and the begging, not because they were not full. They were extraordinarily full, in the specific way that single parenthood makes a life full, with the density of experience that comes from being solely responsible for another person's entire world, while simultaneously building and maintaining your own. My son's name is Emeka Thomas Callum. The middle name, because some things remain true even when the relationship around them has fractured. He was born in August, 7 pounds 4 ounces, with my father's nose and my mother's eyes, and his own specific absolute personhood, that arrived fully formed and has been revealing itself in layers ever since. He is now 7 years old. He can read at a level that his teacher describes as remarkable. He has opinions about dinosaurs that he will share at length with anyone who asks and several people who don't. He loves his dog, a golden retriever named Henry, who has been part of our household since Emeka was 3, with the specific totality that children bring to their most important relationships. He does not know his grandparents. He knows they exist. I have been honest with him, in the age-appropriate increments that honesty with children requires, about the fact that my parents made choices that meant they were not part of our lives. He has processed this with the remarkable equanimity of a child who has been so thoroughly loved by the family that showed up. My best friend Tara, her parents who became his honorary grandparents, and my colleague BC, and her husband who became our chosen family. That the absence of the biological relationship has not created the vacuum it might have in a different configuration. He is whole, Vu. That is the most important sentence in this story. He is whole, and I made him whole, and I did it without the people who made me. The first contact came when Emeka was 2, a card, via, mailed to my address, which told me they had found it, which told me they had been looking, with a photograph of my parents at what appeared to be a family gathering, looking older than I remembered, Vu, looking at the cameras with the specific quality of people who are performing normalcy while managing something else underneath. No return address, no letter, just the photograph. I had looked at it for a long time. Then I had placed it in a drawer and not responded. The second contact came when Emeka was 4. A phone call from my mother to a number I had not given her. My Aunt Chisholm had given it. I deduced, with the well-meaning interference of a woman who had spent 4 years telling me that family was family and forgiveness was Christian, and I should consider my son's relationship with his grandparents. My mother had cried on the phone. I had listened. At the end I had said, I need you to understand that I have a full, good life, and so does my son. If you are ready to enter it on its terms, that is a conversation I am willing to have. If you are looking for a version of us that fits the one you rejected, that version is not available. She had said she understood. She had not called back for 2 years. The begging began when Emeka was 7, as I. Not metaphorical begging, actual, specific, sustained begging, of the kind that arrives through multiple channels simultaneously and carries the specific intensity of people who have understood, finally and too late, the weight of what they chose. My Aunt Chisholm called first, then my father's brother, Uncle Deal, who had never contacted me before in my adult life, and whose sudden appearance in my call log told me that my parents had assembled a family intervention around the question of my son. Then my father called himself the. I had not spoken to my father in 7 years. His voice on the phone was older than I remembered. Not weaker exactly, but carrying the specific quality of age that settles into a voice over years, a slower cadence, a slightly different register. Nadia, he said. Dad, I said, a silence. I want to meet my grandson, he said. Your mother and I, we want to meet him. We want to be part of his life. We understand that we were wrong, but we want to. He stopped. Please. I sat in my kitchen with my father's voice in my ear and looked at the window above the sink where Emeka had, 3 days earlier, taped a drawing of Henry the dog that he had made at school. Yellow crayon, enormous ears, the specific artistic perspective of a 7-year-old who loves his subject deeply. I thought about the letter in my mother's careful cursive. I thought about the 2 pages, the disgrace, the path, outside of God's design, the we. I thought about the August morning when Emeka arrived, and I had held him alone, and the absence of my parents in that room had been a presence of its own, something I had felt and named, and then set aside in order to do what the moment required, which was to be entirely present for the person who needed me to be. I'll think about it, I said. Thank you, my father said. Thank you, Nadia. I thought about it for 3 weeks. Not continuously. I had a 7-year-old and a full-time position and a house and a dog, and the ordinary gorgeous density of a life that I had built specifically to be sufficient without anyone's approval. So, the thinking happened in the margins, in the car, in the early mornings before Emeka woke up, in the specific quiet of the hour after he went to sleep when the day concluded, and the larger questions had space to arrive. What I was thinking about was not whether to allow contact. I had already arrived at the answer to that question. What I was thinking about was how. I called my therapist, A patient and precise woman named Dr. Yemi, who had been working with me for 4 years on exactly the category of questions that my family of origin generated. I described the situation. She asked the questions she always asked. Not the ones that led to answers, but the ones that clarified what I actually believed. At the end of the session, she said, "What does Emeka need? Not what do your parents deserve? Not what do you owe anyone? What does Emeka need?" I thought about this for a long time. Emeka had 4 adults in his life who showed up for him with the specific consistency and warmth of people for whom he was the most important thing. He had Henry. He had his school and his friends and his encyclopedic knowledge of the Cretaceous period. What Emeka needed was exactly what he had. What he did not need was a conditional entry into a relationship with 2 people who had required 17 years of absence and a sustained campaign of familial pressure to arrive at the willingness to try. What he did not need, specifically, it was to be the thing that resolved my parents' grief about the choices they had made. I picked up the phone. I called my father. "I'm willing to have a conversation," I said. "With you and Mom. In person. Before anything involving Emeka." "Yes," he said immediately. "Yes, whatever you need. There are things I need to say," I said, "and things I need to hear. And the conversation will be honest. If it goes well, we can talk about what comes next." "When?" he said. "The next Saturday," I said. "My city. My choice of place. I chose a coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment, not my apartment, a coffee shop. A neutral space I controlled through familiarity rather than ownership. Where I could leave when I needed to leave, where the geometry of the encounter did not trap anyone. My parents arrived 5 minutes early. I arrived on time. They looked. When I walked through the door and saw them at the corner table, like the people I had grown up with, and also like people I was meeting for the first time, the simultaneous recognition of someone known and someone changed. My father was 66. My mother was 63. They had aged in the way of people who have been carrying something for a long time. I sat down. My mother reached across the table. I let her take my hand for a moment. Then I placed my hand back in my lap and said, "I need to say some things." "Yes," my father said. "Please," I said them, all of them, not with heat. Heat was not the register I had arrived at after 3 weeks of careful thinking. With the precise honesty of someone who has decided that the conversation is worth having and is therefore worth having correctly. The letter, the 2 pages, what it had cost me to hold Emeka in that hospital room alone, the years of building a life that was not waiting for their approval. The children's drawings on the window above my kitchen sink. The irreversible reality that my son had a full life, and that entering it was a privilege that had to be earned in the way that any privilege is earned. Not through the pressure of family campaigns or the weight of cultural obligation, but through the sustained, demonstrated evidence of showing up. My mother cried. My father did not, which told me something about what 7 years of holding this had cost him. At the end of my father said, "We were wrong. We were wrong when it mattered most." I have no defense for it. "I know," I said. "Can you?" My mother stopped. "Is there a way forward?" "There is a way to try," I said. It starts with you and me, and it doesn't jump to Emeka until we've built something that's real. Not a performance of reconciliation, something real. They agreed. Then my mother said, with the tentative hope of someone who has been waiting for 7 years to ask, "Can you tell us about him? About Emeka? What is he like?" I thought about my son, 7 years old, dinosaur expert, the believer in the infinite importance of golden retrievers, person of remarkable equanimity, and enormous ears that he had inherited from my father. I reached for my phone. I opened my photos. I turned the screen toward them. On it was a picture of Henry the dog, full page, taken last Tuesday, Henry looking at the camera with the specific dignified expression he deployed when he suspected a treat was forthcoming. My mother blinked. My father looked at the screen. "This is Henry," I said. "He is 4 years old. He is a golden retriever. He is Emeka's best friend, and he has an extremely high opinion of himself." I paused. "You'll meet them both, when the time is right." Henry first, probably, because Henry's opinion of new people matters in our house. My father looked at the photograph, and then he laughed. A real laugh. surprised, full, the laugh of a man who has been holding something heavy for 7 years and has just been handed unexpectedly something light. My mother laughed too. And in the specific, the unrepeatable warmth of two people laughing at a photograph of a dog in a coffee shop on a Saturday morning. Something that had been frozen for 7 years moved slightly, not all the way, not quickly, but it moved. That was 4 months ago. My parents and I have had 3 more conversations since the coffee shop, one on the phone, 2 in person. They are learning what I actually am, which is different from what they spent 7 years imagining. I am learning what they actually are, which is also different from the people I've been carrying in my men's memory since the letter. They have not met Emeka yet. They have met Henry. Last Sunday, I brought Henry to the coffee shop. The three of us and the dog, in the specific social configuration of people who are rebuilding something and have found, in the animal between them, a neutral ground that requires nothing difficult of anyone. Henry sat with my father for 40 minutes. My father fed him pieces of a blueberry muffin with the careful generosity of someone courting an important relationship. Henry accepted these offerings with the dignified appreciation of someone who knows his worth. He has my father's eyes, my father said, looking at Henry. He has everyone's heart, I said. That's how he operates. My father nodded. He looked at me across the table. You built something extraordinary, he said. Your son, your life, all of it. I know, I said. Without us, he said. Yes, I said. Without you. He nodded slowly. With space for us, I said. If we earn it. He looked at Henry, who had settled his large golden head onto my father's knee with the specific instinct of a dog who understands where warmth is needed. We'll earn it, he said. I know, I said, and I believed him. Not completely, not yet, not on 4 months of coffee shop Saturdays and phone calls, and the slow, imperfect work of people trying to close a 7-year distance in the only way it can actually be closed, which is one honest conversation at a time. But enough to try, enough for Henry to put his head on my father's knee, enough for Emeka, one day, when the thing being built is real enough to hold him, to know both versions of his family, the one that chose him from the beginning and the one that found its way back. Before you go, I need your real answer in the comments right now. Was showing them the dog picture the right move, or do you think it was too much? Some people will say it was perfect. Others will say a 7-year wound deserves a more serious first response. Tell me exactly where you stand. I read every single comment. If this story moved something in you, if you have ever had to build a family from scratch because the one you were born into chose wrong, hit that like button so this story finds every person who needs it today. Share it with someone who has been disowned, dismissed, or told they were a disgrace by people who should have known better. And if you believe that love is not the family you're given but the family you build, subscribe. Because every week this channel tells the stories of women who were turned away and built something extraordinary with the door that was left open. You do not want to miss what is coming next week. Your first month of Audible is completely free. Over 500,000 titles waiting in the description below, for the ones who built whole lives from partial families, for the ones who showed up anyway. The link is right there. Use it today.